Michielsen. She will tell us more about Belgium. Lies is a lawyer. She's specialized in labor law, social protection law, and also criminal law. She's a member of the Progress Lawyers Network. And she's also involved in research activity with the University of Antwerp. So, Liza, if I recall your presentation, you will mainly focus on Belgium, the legislation in Belgium, and the pitfalls of this legislation, and what we can think about in terms of improving and all enforcing it in a better manner at workplace level. So you have a couple of slides to present. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. I will try to talk to you about the new legislation that was installed in Belgium very recently about the reintegration of long-term sick employees. The aim is to talk about 4 things. So, short overview. I will not be too technical because I think there's people here from different countries, so no use to go into detail into this procedure. But there's quite some interesting things which we can talk about. As already said, I think among many others, like the trade unions, our new legislation is not a good example, and I will try to explain why. And then I will talk to about some hopeful jurisprudence that we have. It's also not as much as we would hope, but there are some good examples of women with breast cancer that were fired and afterwards got rewards or got a good decision by the courts that we will talk about. As for myself, I'm a lawyer. At Progress Lawyers Network, we try to focus on strategic procedures that can, in this scope, especially individual and collective labor law. So we defend a lot of workers, also a lot of long-term sick workers, unfortunately. As already said, we experience the same, that they come very late to us, while most of the time they are already within the reintegration procedure that we will explain later, that will mostly end up in a dismissal. But when they come to see us, it's mostly already while they're already in there, and so difficult to do something. Of course, you can do something when they are dismissed, but then it's already very late, of course. So why did our government decide to make a new legislation? Because we have in 2017 more than 370,000 long-term sick employees. That's really a lot, and it has increased ×2 during the last 5 years and ×3 during the last 10 years. So the government decided to do something about it and made a new legislation to make sure that these workers can reintegrate and can and will resume their work. When you look at the aims of the legislation, it's quite good. I mean, it's the aim to really try to reintegrate these workers. It's something that was already asked for by the trade unions, by many workers for a longer time. So they made a procedure of reintegration, and they made a new regulation on the dismissal for medical measure, of which both of them are quite problematic. So procedure of reintegration, which is now put in the law, a system where all the different actors can ask to be reintegrated. So the worker can do it, the employer can do it, the doctors can do it. And then you start into this procedure, which we will then see afterwards that will, in 68% of the cases, will end up in a decision which means that you're permanently unfit to start your work or modified work. Our National Labour Council did an evaluation of this new legislation in September of this year, and there are the numbers coming from. The trade unions also did their investigation, of which the numbers are quite similar. So 68% of the workers that reintegrate or want to reintegrate and start the procedure will be permanently unfit and will be dismissed for medical measure without any compensation, no money, no period, nothing. So it's no notice and nothing at all, just immediate stop of the contract. One of the striking figures we found is that 61 of these 68% of the workers permanently found unfit are women. So they suffer a lot higher percentage of the possibility to being fired for medical measure, and the highest number of these 68% are workers that suffer mental sickness. Important number also is in the majority of cases it's the workers themselves that want to reintegrate and that start and ask to be in this procedure. So it's more than 60% of themselves that say, okay, I want to go back to work. And this is even more, a pity that in the end then most of them are fired. This is why at a certain point in the beginning of this new legislation, some of the trade unions send a letter to all of their members to say, we advise you not to start this procedure, or not to, when you are invited to, not to go with it, because in the end you will have a possibility to be dismissed for medical measure. So no term of notice, no severance pay. And a big question, which is not completely resolved yet, is this not a problem of discrimination? Because when you fire somebody because they're permanently unfit to do their work for medical measure, you are discriminating them because of their health situation. And the employers also have to follow the anti-discrimination law. As far, we don't have any case yet which where the court has investigated this, because the new legislation is quite new. So the cases that I will be talking to you after are cases from before this new legislation. Well, this I will go over quite fast. We have an anti-discrimination law of 2007. It's not a good legislation because the burden of proof. There is a division between the burden of proof, so that the worker has to prove or has to show that has to show facts that can indicate discrimination, but it's very difficult for them to prove that. So it's difficult. You cannot be discriminated for current or future health situation or for a physical disability. I will talk to it a little bit later when we discuss the different cases. In any case, this whole legislation about the reintegration of workers, which in most of the cases end up in the dismissal, don't do anything, of course, about the working conditions themselves, then in many cases make the people ill, and don't deal with any of the systematic errors that are there, the increasing competition, individualization, that puts great pressure on the employees. And instead of dealing with the real causes why these 370,000 people are long-term sick and why we have an increase ×2 or ×3 when you look at the last 10 years, they don't do that. They make legislation with the reintegration procedure, which end up for a lot of workers to be very bad. One of an interesting case which we were contacted about is to show how the real causes of why the people are ill are not being dealt with is a case of ArcelorMittal, which is a big steel company in Belgium. They were confronted with a lot of sick employees within the cleaning staff. That was there was a company called Ariel, which was employing these people, and instead of dealing with the causes of why these people or why so many people were ill, they sent a letter to all of their workers to say, we will reward you with a bonus of 75% when you are 7 days or less ill a year. So not only will they what the new legislation mostly is a cheap and easy way for employers to get rid of the sick people. Instead of making sure that these people can really start to work again, most end up not being working anymore. The legislation is also very soft on employers. There's low penalties, no obligation to reintegrate. This is also why the National Labour Council put a whole lot of good propositions to the government to change this legislation and to make it better. Some of the propositions are put here. One very important one, which is also put forward by the National Labour Council, but also by the trade unions, is that it has to be a voluntary procedure. Now it's a mandatory procedure, meaning if you receive a letter as an employee that your employer wants you to reintegrate, you have to follow this procedure. The National Labour Council says it would be a lot better if it's a voluntary procedure, then you will also have a lot of a better outcome in the end. You should really focus on the real support of long-term sick employees, not with the goal to dismiss them, but to really try to integrate and to find adjusted ways for them to go back to work. A greater role for the doctor of the employee, which now is nowhere in the procedure, so they cannot advise, they can advise, but it's nowhere obligated that they should be listened to, and they are the ones that know the employees best, of course. There's no obligation for the employer to provide a percentage of adjusted work. He can just say, okay, you need adjusted work, but I don't have it, so too bad, then it will be a dismissal. Especially for, I think, bigger companies, also for smaller, but for bigger companies, it's impossible to not have adjusted work. I mean, there's a lot of possibility, and it should be put more forward, this obligation for providing a percentage of adjusted work. Also, change the possibility to dismiss for medical measure, which is now used in most of the cases, which is really a horrible outcome for people being long-term sick to afterwards and just be fired without any remuneration. So as said and as asked, I will talk to you about some good jurisprudence. It could be a lot better, and we need a lot more cases, I think, but there are some examples in which women with breast cancer that were all dismissed in the 3 cases, they, on different legal grounds, received the penalty afterwards. The most recent one is the last one. It's from this year, and it's a very important one. It was a woman with lymph cancer. I don't know if that's the English word. She was absent from her work for almost 2 years. She came back, and after less than 2 weeks after she asked that her working scheme was adjusted a little bit, she was dismissed. Well, she invoked a lot of different legal grounds, but the one that the court in the end kept was that the consequences of cancer should be defined as a disability. And according to the Court of Justice definition of disability, and also according to the Belgian anti-discrimination legislation, when there's a disability, as an employer, you're obliged to present reasonable adjustments. And the court says that in the case of this woman, that the employer did not present these reasonable adjustments. The court says, for example, what they could have done is adjust a working scheme, but also give her education or a course that she could follow to be able to keep up with the changes that were in the company in the time that she was away. So the court says, because you did not offer these reasonable judgments, you discriminated this woman on the basis of a disability. And this is really important, because if the consequences of cancer can be defined as a disability, this means that all employers are obliged to offer reasonable adjustments. And if they don't do that, they can be, they are violating the discrimination legislation. This particular woman received a penalty of 6 months of salary, which of course you could say is barely, it's not enough. It's the penalty that is provided or that is put in the law. Another interesting case was in Ghent, of which the court decided that the dismissal after breast cancer itself is the discrimination. So they didn't use the disability discrimination, but they used the current and future health discrimination clause to say that this company, it was also a woman with breast cancer. She had chemotherapy, she was pregnant during her during the time that she was still having cancer. She got her baby, then she returned to work, and she was dismissed very soon after. And it was also clear in the case that they decided already to fire her while she was still having treatments and so on. And the employer said in his letter, he said, we are firing you because we have problems with the continuity of our work here, and this is because of your long-term illness. And so the court says it's said that it's because of the health situation, and if you say it's because of the health situation, it is a discrimination. And this woman received a penalty of 22,000 euros, which is also not very high, but in any case, she received well, the news from the court that it was found as a discrimination. I will finish. And so another case in 2015, but this is not such a good example because it's a woman who worked already for a very long time at her work. She had breast cancer, she had therapies, chemotherapy. She was only for 4 or 5 months away from her work, and despite of what her doctor said, she really wanted to start to work again soon. So she did after 5-6 months. And then she asked in the beginning, just for the first month, to work a little bit less. And less than 2 months after she restarted her work, she was fired. In this case, I don't understand why, and I still don't agree. The Court of Labor in Brussels says it's not a discrimination, but it's an abuse of law. I will not go technically into the details. It's another legal ground which you can base on. In any case, she received a penalty, but the court didn't find it discriminatory, which I still don't agree with. Just to conclude, and it's not only me thinking it, it's also our National Health Council, which is the highest health council we have in Belgium, which advises our government. But we have never had as many conditions for healthy working conditions as now. At the same time, we have an increasing number of long-term sick employees. This is just impossible. We have to change this. We have to change the model of society, make sure that these people can really integrate, that the work is adjusted to the people and not the other way around, which is also put in our legislation, that you have to adjust the work to the people and not the other way around. And the highest health council, they made last year, they made a very good advisory on burnout and returning to work, and they say to the policymakers, you have to rethink your economic model and the place that it takes, you have to rechange it, because like the way it's going now, you have all these conditions for healthy working conditions. At the same time, so many people are long-term ill, they don't really reintegrate, they're not accepted at the workplace in many cases. So that's it. Maybe to just end on a positive note, there are many employers really doing their best and trying to really reintegrate, but unfortunately they did it already before this new legislation, so they don't need this legislation. When they want, they can voluntarily make any agreements with the employee that they can, and there are employers that do it, and there are good examples to be told as well, but they don't come from this new legislation, unfortunately. Thank you.